sat beside my pain without trying to fix it. Arrived in silence, warm and quiet. It didn't tell me to move on or force a smile I couldn't don. It simply laid itself nearby and held the hurt I used to hide. And in that steady, gentle visit, my pain felt safe to sit. For once I wasn't told to heal, I only needed space to feel the light that sat beside my pain without trying to fix it. Didn't judge or contradict it. It softened edges sharp and wicked, and let my heart revisit the light that sat beside my pain without trying to fix it. Made my breathing not restricted. It held my sorrow soft and vivid, and didn't force me fix it. Rested on my hands, a warmth that understood demands. It didn't rush the grief I bore or push me through a closing door. It touched the corners of my chest where tired truths refused to rest, and in its calm, unhurried pivot, my pain felt safe to live it. The dawn said softly, you're allowed to hurt without a healing cry. The dawn said softly, you're allowed to hurt without a healing crowd. The light that sat beside my pain without trying to fix it, let my tears rise unrestricted. It gathered all the fear conflicted and made my sorrow less constricted. The light that sat beside my pain without trying to fix it, held my silence and depicted every ache I once evicted, and let my wounds exist. Maybe healing starts with rest, with letting pain sit as a guest, not pushing it to disappear, but letting morning draw it near. A light that whispers, I permit it, you don't have to fix it. The light that sat beside my pain without trying to fix it turned my suffering exquisite. It freed my chest from weight afflictive and warmed the hurt I once evicted. The light that sat beside my pain without trying to fix it stayed until I could outlive it, and in its gentle calm revisit, my heart no longer needed fixing. And in that quiet visit, my pain felt safe to sit. Dawn that let me break without calling it weakness came soft and full of quiet sweetness. It didn't tell me to be strong or say my broken piece is wrong. It touched the tears upon my face with warmth that honored every trace, and in that gentle loving meekness, my break felt less like weakness. Too long I hid the parts that cracked, afraid of how the world reacted. The dawn that let me break without calling it weakness held my heart with deep completeness. It warmed the wounds I carried sleepless and soothed my spirit's bleakness. The dawn that let me break without calling it weakness turned my trembling into sweetness. It gave my breathing soft discreetness. And let me break in meekness. The morning brushed my fragile ribs and softened all my silent fibs. It whispered gently near my ear, you're safe to fall apart right here. It didn't rush my trembling hands or force me into stronger stands. And in that dawn's forgiving bleakness, I broke without the weakness. The light said, break as much you need. It's part of how your wounds are free. The dawn that let me break without calling it a weakness, lifted fear with quiet sweetness. It loosened grief I held in deepness, and let my heart find sleekness. The dawn that let me break without calling it weakness, gave my soul a safe uniqueness, letting tears fall without bleakness. Maybe breaking isn't wrong, it's where our truest selves belong. A dawn that listens without claim, doesn't add an ounce of shame. A morning whisper soft and sheet, breaking doesn't make you weak. The dawn that let me break without calling it a weakness, lifted years of shame and bleakness. It filled my breath with gentle sweetness and softened all my meekness. The dawn that let me break without calling it weakness, carried me with full completeness, and in its glow of warm discreetness, my breaking wasn't weakness. And in that dawn's deep meekness, my break restored my sweetness. The morning that brought my heart back from where it hid came slowly lifting off the lid. It shined on places dark and sealed, where pieces of my soul were peeled. It touched the hollow of my chest and told my pulse to take a rest. And in that soft and steady bit, my heart came where it hid. I buried parts I couldn't face, and memories I can't erase. The morning that brought my heart back from where it hid took the fear I never rid. It thawed the ache that pain forbid, and brought my heart back from where it hid. The morning that brought my heart back from where it hid, soft in shadows I once slid. It lifted wounds no longer kid, and freed the heart I hid. The sunlight grazed my quiet bones, a warmth that hummed in gentle tones. It lingered near my shaking core, where sorrow pooled across the floor. It gently coaxed the parts I'd lost, the ones I hid at any cost. And in that dawn's warm glowing grid, my heart returned it hid. The dawn spoke softly, come on home. You never had to hurt alone. The morning that brought my heart back from where it hid showed the love I once forbid. It eased the memories I outdid, and warmed the heart I hid. The brought my heart back from where it hid, gave my soul a resting bit. It let my hope return amid the shadows where it hid. But maybe hearts don't disappear, they only hide when drowned in fear. And morning light with gentle glow coaxes them back slow. A dawn that whispers you're not rid. Come home from where you hid. The morning that brought my heart back from where it hid lifted years of pain I did. It held me soft like woven grit and gave me back what hid. The morning that brought my heart back from where it hid stayed until my tears unhid, and in its tender warm amid my heart came back, it hid. And in that golden bit my heart no longer hid. The dawn that watched me without asking me to change arrived in stillness, soft and strange. It didn't urge me to improve or tell me what I must remove. It didn't shame the way I felt or judge the cards that I'd been dealt. And in that quiet, gentle range I didn't need to change. For once I breathed without a goal, no pressure weighing on my soul. The dawn that watched me without asking me to change made my pain feel less strange. It gave my heart a wider range and held my flaws without exchange. The dawn that watched me without asking me to change stayed with me through light and strange. It kept my breath in quiet range and never asked me to change. The sunlight drifted to my knees and warmed my anguish into ease. It touched the scars along my arms without expecting perfect charms. It didn't push me to be brave or rush the healing that I craved. And in that warmth of steady range I didn't feel deranged. The dawn said softly, you're enough, you don't need more, you've been through tough. The dawn that watched me without asking me to change held my wounds without estrange. It let my grief rearrange into a softer inner range. The dawn that watched me without asking me to change lifted guilt I can't exchange. It showed me kindness warm and strange and let me live unchanged. Maybe love begins with rest, with letting hearts feel unaddressed. A morning light that doesn't judge nor push us with a subtle nudge. A dawn that whispers, I'm your range, you don't need to change. The dawn that watched me without asking me to change mended fractures out of range. It soothed the pain that felt so strange and held me close without exchange. The dawn that watched me without asking me to change softened wounds that can't estrange, and in its glow without exchange I didn't need to change, and in that tender age I stayed without a change. The morning that made my heart feel possible again came warm like old forgotten friend. It brushed my chest with hopeful air and woke the dreams I placed elsewhere. It lingered near my quiet mind where possibilities unwind, and in that golden soft amen my heart felt whole again. I lost my hope to broken years, to doubts, regrets, and hidden fears. The morning that made my heart feel possible again lifted sorrow from within. It touched the places worn and thin and sparked my will again. The morning that made my heart feel possible again held my breath with gentle pen. It gave me reasons now and then to choose the world again. The sunlight warmed my trembling bones, a soft reminder in its tones that maybe life could bloom anew. If given just a golden view, my heartbeat grew a little wide as morning settled by my side, and in that bright reviving glen my hope rose up again. The dawn said softly, you will rise. There's more to see with waking eyes. The morning that made my heart feel possible again was a bomb I'd kept within. It let my courage re-begin and softened where I'd been. The morning that made my heart feel possible again felt like breathing wind again. It gave my soul a place to mend and made my dreams ascend. Maybe possible means small, a tiny step instead of all. Morning light across the floor that whispers try a little more, a glow that shows what could have been. Your heart is possible again. The morning that made my heart feel possible again pulled me from my steep chagrin. It let my broken bravery spin into a hopeful spin. The morning that made my heart feel possible again stayed with me through thick and thin, and in its warm and peaceful pen my heart felt whole again. And in that soft amen my world felt new again. Light that stayed until my fears realized they weren't needed came quiet, gentle, slowly seated. It touched the corners of my mind where frightened shadows stay confined. It laid its warmth upon my chest, a quiet hand that whispered rest, and in that soft and glowing beat my fears fell less. years I'd held my breath too tight, convinced the day would turn to night. The light that stayed until my fears realized they were needed. Softened storms I once repeated. It took the worries fear had seeded and told my heart they were needed. The light that stayed until my fears realized they were needed. Lifted doubts my soul had heated. It warmed the spaces fear impeded and showed me they were needed. Drifted through my ribs and loosened all my trembling fibs. It pushed the darkness from its throne, but not with force, just warmth alone. It rested softly on my spine, a steady, gentle, patient sign. And in that dawn so calm and seated, my fears felt unneeded. The light said softly, let them go. Doesn't need to run the show. The light that stayed until my fears realized they weren't needed. Held the thoughts that once misleaded. It cleared the pain my heart had pleaded and gave me peace unimpeded. The light that stayed until my fears realized they weren't needed. Showed the truths I once conceded. It planted calm where nerves had bleeded and proved my fears weren't needed. Maybe fear's just a flame that burns too long when fed with shame, but morning light can dim its glow and let the gentle breezes blow a dawn that whispers, warm and pleaded. Safe now, fear's not needed. The light that stayed until my fears realized they weren't needed. Lifted shadows fear impeded. It soothed the parts my heart had bleeded and told my soul it succeeded. The light that stayed until my fears realized they weren't needed. Stayed until my calm exceeded. And in its warmth my heart conceded those fears were never needed. And as the dawn receded, my fears no longer needed. Morning that let my heart rest without feeling guilty came softly, tender, shining, milky. It touched the stress behind my eyes and melted tension from disguise. It laid its warmth upon my hands and loosened all my quiet demands. And in that hush so calm and silky, my rest stopped feeling guilty. I'd carry duty on my spine, afraid to say the word decline. The morning that let my heart rest without feeling guilty held my breath so soft and gently. It whispered truths I missed intently and freed me from the guilt so stealthy. The morning that let my heart rest without feeling guilty took my worries stacked so densely and let me breathe more freely, simply, and rest without guilt's entry. The sunlight fell across my knees, a soothing balm on broken pleas. It didn't ask me to achieve or shame the way I needed leave. It warmed the corners of my room and lifted shadows of my gloom. And in its warm and quiet pity, my rest felt less guilty. The dawn said softly, here's your peace. You're allowed to stop and seize. The morning that let my heart rest without feeling guilty held my fear so inadvertently. It eased my breath from knots unhealthy and soothed my pulse completely. The morning that let my heart rest without feeling guilty showed me rest is not unworthy. It took my shame and held it softly and let my heart rest freely. Maybe guilt is learned in pain and years of pushing through the strain, but morning light can teach us slow how to release what we don't owe. A dawn that whispers warm and sprightly, you deserve rest lightly. Morning that let my heart rest without feeling guilty lifted a weight I carried daily. It cradled me so warm and gently and taught me rest is worthy. The morning that let my heart rest without feeling guilty stayed beside my heart intently, and in its glow so pure and kindly my guilt dissolved completely. Resting came gently, without a trace of guilty. The light that showed me I was still worth staying for came softly through my bedroom door. It brushed my cheek with quiet grace and warmed the tears upon my face. It didn't question why I cried or ask which pains I tried to hide. It simply laid upon my core and said I'm worth staying for. I doubted worth through countless nights, too tangled up in inner fights. The light that showed me I was still worth staying for held my wounds, I can't ignore it, softened grief down to the floor and proved I'm worth staying for. The light that showed me I was still worth staying for lifted doubts from every pore. It touched the pain I once swore sore and said I'm worth staying for. The morning strengthened broken parts and whispered warmth into my heart. It healed the cracks that made me cold and kissed the scars that once felt old. My breathing deep and slow and sure, a quiet promise of something pure. And in that dawn's forgiving storm I felt worth fighting for. The dawn said gently, rise and see you're worth the world you're meant to be. The light that showed me I was still worth staying for pulled my soul from inner war. It soothed the fear I'd carried sore and loved me to the core. The light that showed me I was still worth staying for held my was still worth staying for. Lifted pain I lived before. It helped my fragile hope restore and held me evermore. The light that showed me I was still worth staying for stayed inside my heart's decor, and in its gentle endless pour I knew I'm worth staying for. And don't return once more to show I'm worth staying for. The morning that didn't rush me into being okay came softly in a tender way. It didn't push my pain aside or tell me feelings must subside. It let my sadness stay a while without demanding I should smile. And in that warm and quiet sway I wasn't forced okay. The world had always moved too fast, asking me to heal so fast. The morning that didn't rush me into being okay held my tears where they could stay. It didn't tell me find a way, it simply stayed beside my friend. Morning that didn't rush me into being okay, let my brokenness portray. It whispered softly, you can stay, you don't need here today. The sunlight touched my trembling wrist, a gentle, warm and quiet tryst. It let my breathing move at ease without the weight of breaking knees. It rested softly near my spine and said, your pace is truly fine. And in that hush of warm ballet I didn't need okay. The dawn said calmly, take your time, healing is an uphill climb. The morning that didn't rush me into being okay softened grief and warm array. It warmed the things I can't convey and held me through the gray. The morning didn't rush me into being okay, gave my heart a gentle bay where I could breathe and simply stay without pretending. Maybe okay isn't a line, but slow returning over time, and morning light becomes the guide that walks with us from side to side. A dawn that whispers warm and gray, you're fine not being okay. The morning that didn't rush me into being okay held my sorrow's disarray. It didn't judge what fell astray, it loved me anyway. The morning didn't rush me into being okay, stayed until I'd find my way. And in its calm, forgiving sway I healed in my own way. And dawn would always stay, even when I'm not okay. The dawn that let me be soft without being broken, arrived with truths left unspoken. It warmed the tears upon my cheek and didn't ask me to be sleek. It touched the pieces of my core I'd hidden deep in quiet war, and in its soft and subtle token I felt soft, not broken. I feared that softness meant defeat, a sign my heart could not compete. The dawn that let me be soft without being broken held the words I'd left unspoken. It wrapped my wounds in gentle token and proved that softness isn't broken. The dawn that let me be soft without being broken lifted weight that pain had woken. It let my heart be open, awoken, yet never felt broken. Sunlight rested on my arms and warmed away my toughened charms. It didn't push me to be bold or hide the softness I withhold. It left its glow around my face, a quiet warmth, a tender grace. And in that dawn so warm, unspoken, softness wasn't broken. The morning whispered, strength is this. Soft hearts that still know how to kiss. The dawn that let me be soft without being broken gave my soul a softer token. It let my guarded walls be open without my spirit feeling broken. The dawn that let me be soft without being broken held my tears that long had woken. It warmed the truths I'd never spoken, love my softness unbroken. Maybe strength is quiet light, the kind that doesn't need to fight. A dawn that tells us soft is strong. You've been soft and brave so long. A morning glow that leaves unspoken. You're soft but never broken. The dawn that let me be soft without being broken lifted grief the nights had woken. It held the fears I couldn't open and soothed my soul unbroken. The dawn that let me be soft without being broken stayed in warmth I can't retoken, and in its golden words unspoken I learned I'm soft, not broken. Dawn soft token, my heart stayed whole, unbroken. Light that waited for my tears to come out on their own came softly calm as morning tone. It didn't beg my eyes to cry or question how I stayed so dry. It simply shined along my face and gave each tear its rightful place. And in that warm, forgiving zone, my tears came on their own. I'd held them back for far too long, afraid that crying made me wrong. Light that waited for my tears to come out on their own stayed with me when I felt alone. It warmed the pain I hadn't shown and let my breaking be my own. The light that waited for my tears to come out on their own lifted weight I'd overgrown. It softened wounds I'd long postponed. brushed the edges of my chest and let my breathing find its rest. My silence cracked in quiet sigh, let the tears rise by and by. And in that tender monochrome, my tears return me home. The dawn said softly, let it fall. You don't need reasons for it all. The light that waited for my tears to come out on their own held the grief I'd overgrown. It didn't rush my fragile tone, it simply kept me never alone. The light that waited for my tears to come out on their own turned my sorrow into groan and let my heart unclench its stone. Through tears that came alone, maybe tears don't need command, just gentle light and open hand. The dawn that whispers warm and slow, it's okay, just let them flow. The glow that sits with you unknown, till tears come on their own. The light that waited for my tears to come out on their own made my sadness fully known. It showed my grief was not alone, but something I could own. The light that waited for my tears to come out on their own stayed till every ache had flown, and in its warmth so warmly shone, my tears felt safe to roam. And in that tender zone, my tears came on their own. The dawn that found the parts of me I thought were lost forever came quiet, steady, soft as feather. It slipped beneath my scattered mind and gathered pieces left behind. It warmed the fragments of my soul, the ones life never made me whole. And in that gentle, warm endeavor, I found what I'd lost forever. I'd bury pieces out of fear, afraid they'd disappear. The dawn that found the parts of me I thought were lost forever stitched them back with softest tether. It placed them where the light felt clever and made my heart feel whole forever. The dawn that found the parts of me I thought were lost forever held them with a calm endeavor and whispered, you are gone forever. You're here again forever. The sunlight laid upon my hands, collecting all my broken strands. It rested warmth on quiet flaws and kissed the wounds from former loves. It touched the tears beneath my skin and coaxed my inner self again. And in that dawn's embracing weather, my pieces came together. The morning whispered, you're still here, your missing parts were always near. The dawn that found the parts of me I thought were lost forever pulled them gently from the sever The dawn that found the parts of me I thought were lost forever, held my heart in warm endeavor. It built me softer, lighter, clever, and gave me wholeness forever. The dawn that found the parts of me I thought were lost forever, made my sorrow leave its tether, and in its glow that shine forever, my soul returned forever. And in that dawning tether, I found myself forever. The morning that pulled my heart back from the edge came slow like dew on a window ledge. It didn't push or pull too fast, it simply whispered, "This won't last." It laid its warmth upon my spine and softened thoughts no longer mine. And in that soft protective pledge, my heart moved from the edge. I'd stood too close to breaking night, unable to recall the light. The morning that pulled my heart back from the edge held my shaking like a hedge. It kept me safe from thoughts that dredge and lifted me from danger's edge. The morning that pulled my heart back from the edge turned my breathing to a sedge. It brought me from the darkest ledge and warmed my inner edge. The sunlight brushed my heavy ribs, a quiet touch that gently gives. It soothed the storm inside my chest and urged my pounding heart to rest. It kissed the panic in my bones with warmth that answered silent groans. And in that dawn's embracing wedge, my heart stepped from the edge. The dawn said softly, "Hold to me, you're stronger than the storm you see." The morning that pulled my heart back from the edge held my tears in steady hedge. It guided me from danger's dredge and walked me from the trembling edge. The morning that pulled my heart back from the edge turned my fear to softened pledge. It wrapped me safely in its sedge and healed me from the edge. Maybe edges aren't the end, but places where new paths begin. And morning light becomes the rope that lifts us with its thread of hope. A dawn that whispers through the dredge, "You're meant for more than edge." The morning that pulled my heart back from the edge took my spirit broken fledged. It turned my pain from cutting edge into a path of healing pledge. The morning that pulled my heart back from the edge held me in its warming hedge, and in its tender sunrise edge my heart stepped from the edge. And with that gentle wedge, my heart returned from edge. that stayed until my darkness learned to ease, came slowly drifting like a breeze. It found the corners of my mind where shadows wrapped my thoughts in bind. It rested gently on my chest and let my shaking heart feel blessed. And in that glow that didn't cease, my darkness learned to ease. I'd feared my shadows far too long, believing they would always strong. The light that stayed until my darkness learned to ease softened storms that didn't please. It warmed the voids with quiet tears and turned my grief to peace. The light that stayed until my darkness learned to ease held my heart in gentle ease. It taught the night to slowly cease and let my breath release. The sunlight settled in my bones and loosened all my inner stones. It pushed the night from where it clung and warmed the fear inside my lungs. It didn't force the dark to flee, it simply asked it stay with me. And in that tender sunrise crease, my darkness learned its peace. The morning whispered, take your time. Even shadows need a climb. The light that stayed until my darkness learned to ease turned despair into reprise. It held my sorrow piece by piece and soothed my worst unease. The light that stayed until my darkness learned to ease gave my breath its sweet release. It helped my trembling slowly cease and hugged my pain with peace. Maybe darkness isn't wrong, it only lingers far too long, until the dawn decides to shine and whisper softly, you'll be fine. A light that stays in golden breeze till darkness learns to ease. The light that stayed until my darkness learned to ease lifted grief without degrees. It brightened tears that fell like seas and soothed them into peace. The light that stayed until my darkness learned to ease stayed through nights of memories, and in its patient sunrise keys my darkness learned to ease. And in that gentle peace my shadows found release. The dawn that held the version of me I was afraid to be came softly with a quiet plea. It rested warmth upon my face and offered me a safer place. It touched the wounds I hid so deep, the parts of me I couldn't keep. And in that golden certainty it held the feared out me. I pushed away the truest part, afraid it'd break my fragile heart. The dawn that held the version of me I was afraid to be held my truth so tenderly. It let me see what I could be. If I embrace myself fully, the dawn that held the version of me I was afraid to be lifted weight internally. It whispered softly, you are free. Become who you must be. The sunlight moved along my frame and warmed the scars that carried shame. It wrapped the pieces I denied in kindness I had never tried. It didn't rush me to accept the version that I long had kept. It simply stood in certainty and welcomed all of me. The dawn said gently, don't disguise, there's beauty in the parts you hide. The dawn that held the version of me I was afraid to be held my flaws in soft decree. It didn't push identity, it simply let me choose to see. The dawn that held the version of me I was afraid to be gave my heart a place to breathe. It freed the things I didn't free and held the realest me. Maybe who we're meant to be is buried under who we see, and morning light begins to show the parts we're terrified to know. A dawn that whispers warm and free, I'll hold that version, see. The dawn that held the version of me I was afraid to be carried truth in constancy. It softened shadows haunting me and birthed a calmer me. The dawn that held the version of me I was afraid to be stayed until I could agree that all I feared was meant to be a part of whole of me. And in that dawn's decree I met the braver me. The light that sat with my hurt until it stopped feeling wrong arrived quiet, patient, soft and long. It didn't rush me through the ache or claim the pain was some mistake. It only rested on my skin and let my trembling breathe again. And in its steady, tender song my hurt stopped feeling wrong. I'd lived too long with hidden pain, afraid my sorrow seemed insane. The light that sat with my hurt until it stopped feeling wrong stayed beside me all along. It warmed the wounds I kept so strong and told my sorrow it belonged. The light that sat with my hurt until it stopped feeling wrong held my grief that felt lifelong. It hummed a quiet healing song till nothing felt so wrong. The morning settled gently on the pieces of me nearly gone. It touched the ache I couldn't name and softened all my silent shame. It didn't tell me to be brave or bury hurt I couldn't save. It only stayed so calm and strong and made my hurt less wrong. The dawn said softly, you're allowed. Hurt doesn't make you weak or loud. The light that sat with my hurt until it stopped feeling wrong. Lifted weight I'd held so long, it sang a mellow morning song and helped me heal where I belong. The light that sat with my hurt until it stopped feeling wrong. Showed my scars, they still were strong. It turned my pain to something strong. It made me feel less wrong. Maybe pain needs time to breathe, a hand that doesn't dare to leave, a ray of dawn that doesn't judge nor offer healing as a nudge, a light that whispers all along. Hurt doesn't make you wrong. The light that sat with my hurt until it stopped feeling wrong stood with me when nights were long. It let my sorrow join its song and helped me where I belong. The light that sat with my hurt until it stopped feeling wrong stayed till tears could move along, and in its gentle patient song my hurt stopped feeling wrong, and dawn kept holding strong till nothing felt so wrong. The dawn that held my heart believe it could begin again. A ride with warmth beneath my skin. It touched the doubts I held too tight and pulled me from the longest night. It whispered gently near my ear, you're still alive, you're still right here. And in that calm, forgiving glen, my heart began again. I'd lost my faith in second starts, in mending all my broken parts. The dawn that held my heart believed it could begin again. Lifted sorrow's heavy pen, it wiped the page of where I'd been and let me breathe again. The dawn that held my heart believed it could begin again. Held my trembling inner den. It warmed the things I kept within and let me hope again. The sunlight crawled across the floor and nudged my spirit from its core. It sparked the dreams I tucked away and begged me softly not to stray. My breathing deepened with the glow, a gentle pace, a patient flow. And in that morning's healing grin, I felt myself begin. The dawn said you don't have to rush, your heart deserves a softer hush. The dawn that held my heart believed it could begin again. Swept my fears from where they'd been. It let new courage seep within and freed what I held in. The dawn that held my heart believed it could begin again. Stayed until I found my zen. It whispered softly, take your pen, rewrite your life again. Maybe beginnings aren't loud, they bloom beneath a quiet cloud. A morning light that softly beams and stirs forgotten fragile dreams. A dawn that whispers from within, you're meant to start again. The dawn that held my heart believed it could begin again. Held me stronger than back then. It let me breathe a life again and soothed my deepest wind. The dawn that held my heart believed it could begin again. Stayed through loss begin again. Morning that stayed with the version of me that felt too tired to fight came warm, unjudging with its light. It didn't urge my strength to rise or challenge pain behind my eyes. It simply rested by my side and let my weary soul abide. And in that calm, forgiving sight, I didn't need to fight. I'd fought through nights that never ceased till all my strength was long decreased. The morning that stayed with the version of me that felt too tired to fight held my weakness soft and light. It said my worth wasn't the fight, it's simply staying in the light. The morning that stayed with the version of me that felt too tired to fight lifted weight from endless night. It whispered, you will be alright, even if you can't fight. The sunlight brushed my heavy bones, a comfort warm as whispered tones. It wrapped my ribs with patient care and eased the ache I couldn't bear. It didn't bless me with demand or try to pull me to a stand. It only stayed within my sight and told me it's alright. The dawn said softly, rest your chest. Survival's not a strength contest. The morning that stayed with the version of me that felt too tired to fight held my quiet, dimmed out light. It didn't shame my lack of might, it only hugged me through the night. The morning that stayed with the version of me that felt too tired to fight turned my darkness less contrite, and in its slow and healing light I didn't need to fight. Maybe surviving doesn't mean to shine or stand or stay pristine. Maybe it means just staying here with trembling hands and breath unclear. A dawn that whispers soft and slight, you're safe without the fight. The morning that stayed with the version of me that felt too tired to fight held my tears that blurred my sight. It soothed the ache of silent fright and warmed me back to light. The morning that stayed with the version of me that felt too tired to fight stayed till sunrise burned so bright, and in its presence soft and white I found the strength to fight. Morning's quiet night turn darkness into light. The morning that made my heart believe healing wasn't too late came softly as it crossed the gate. It touched the ears of quiet ache I thought no dawn could ever break. It rested gently on my skin and stirred the hope I hid within. And in that patient sunlight state, healing didn't feel too late. I'd spent too long in heavy night, convinced I'd miss is my chance for life. The morning that made my heart believe healing wasn't too late. Held the fear I'd complicate. It whispered softly, rewrite fate. There's time to heal, it's not too late. The morning made my heart believe healing wasn't too late. Lifted sorrow's hidden weight. It soothed the pain I used to hate. And told my heart it's not too late. The sunlight warmed my trembling hands and eased the tight and weary bands. It brushed the corners of my chest where hopelessness had built a nest. It didn't blame me for the years spent drowning quietly in tears. It only opened healing's gate and whispered, you're not late. The dawn said gently, take it slow. There's still so much your heart can grow. The morning that made my heart believe healing wasn't too late. Softened grief that did stagnate. It turned despair to something straight and let new courage radiate. The morning that made my heart believe healing wasn't too late. Touched my soul's abandoned state. It showed me wounds could still translate to strength that doesn't wait. Maybe healing doesn't age. It isn't locked by time or stage. Maybe the dawn will always come to fill the silence, strike the drum. A sunrise whisper warm and great. Healing's never late. The morning that made my heart believe healing wasn't too late. Held my fractures delicate. It taught my breathing to create a world where hope participates. The morning that made my heart believe healing wasn't too late. Stayed to show me heart's innate. And in its warm and glowing state, healing was never late. The morning sealed my fate. Dawn that held my shaking hands until they learned to rest. Arrived soft, warm and quietly blessed. It touched the tremor in my bones where nights had carved their fragile tones. It didn't ask me to be still or tell my fear to follow will. It simply placed its gentle crest until my hands found. I'd shaken through the longest night, afraid I'd never feel alright. The dawn that held my shaking hands until they learned to rest, laid its warmth across my chest. It knew the weight I had repressed and gave my trembling heart a nest. The dawn that held my shaking hands until they learned to rest, stayed until my soul confessed that even shaking souls are blessed and even fear needs rest. The sunlight moved along my wrists, a gentle balm, a warming kiss. It held the panic running through the places I'd long tried to soothe. It wrapped around the hidden parts I carried deep inside my heart, and in that warm, forgiving crest, my hands began to rest. The dawn said softly, take your time. There's no rush for your hands to climb. The dawn that held my shaking hands until they learned to rest. Let my breath grow less distressed. It warmed the fears I had repressed and kept my trembling reassessed. The dawn that held my shaking hands until they learned to rest. Lifted weight from my unrest. It soothed the nerves beneath my breast till trembling turned to rest. Maybe trembling isn't weak. It's fear afraid to softly speak, and morning light becomes the guide that sits with shaking by our side. A dawn that whispers, soft and blessed, you're safe now, find your rest. The dawn that held my shaking hands until they learned to rest, stood with me through every test. It offered warmth that I possessed and helped my spirit decompress. The dawn that held my shaking hands until they learned to rest, stayed until my fears progressed into a quiet, peaceful rest, and held my